As the clock strikes 3 a.m., a black prisoner transport vehicle of the NKVD, the Soviet secret police organization, drives up to the house. Anyone who got into the vehicle would understand that it was the last trip of his or her life. Educated intellectuals, village residents, working class, and the clergy, people from all social classes passed through the tortures of the Soviet punitive organs. The slightest suspicion of disloyalty to the system would result in imprisonment. Mass clearing operations, which were later referred to as the Great Terror or alternatively the Great Purge, began in August 1937. The NKVD People's Commissar Nikolai Yezhov presided over the campaign, working under Stalin's orders. In 1937 to 1938, he met with Stalin 300 times. They spoke for about 900 hours. Yezhov sent Stalin 15,000 special messages, including lists of arrests and executions. Throughout the 760 days of the Great Purge, in Ukraine alone, 190,000 people were convicted. 120,000 of them were shot dead. The International Center for Culture and Arts is one of the largest concert halls in Kiev. The NKVD of the Ukrainian SSR was located here in 1934 to 1938. Historians say that tens of thousands of Ukrainians were shot within the walls of this building. Today, the cross set near the palace serves as a reminder of the terrible crimes of the USSR. According to experts' estimates, at least 162 people were killed in Ukraine every night. The largest cemetery for victims of the communist regime in Ukraine is the Bykivnia graves on the outskirts of Kiev. 35,000 victims of the Bolshevik regime were buried there, but during Soviet times, propaganda portrayed these as graves of the victims of the Nazis. In 1989, the commission, which was already the fourth in a row, came to the conclusion that there were still victims of the Soviet regime buried there. More than 200 witnesses were interviewed. The remains of people were found. At night, bodies shot dead were brought from Kiev prisons through this forest path, known now as the Road to Death. They were transported in vehicles hidden by tarp. In this place, the forest was enclosed with a 3-meter fence. The NKVD officers guarded the territory. People's bodies were brought to Bykivnia from different regions of Ukraine. Therefore, it is very difficult now to estimate how many of them were buried there. But according to documents, there were at least 15,000 people who were identified. Victims of the Great Purge were not only Ukrainians. It has been estimated that 600,000 people were killed during these 2 years, not to mention the millions more killed over the course of Stalin's leadership. As for investigating crimes of the communist regime, Ukrainian historians closely cooperate with their counterparts from the former Soviet states. On the eve of the anniversary of the Great Terror, new books about Stalin's repressions, written by a Kazakhstani scholar, were presented in the National Library of Ukraine. The history of the Kazakh and Ukrainian people is closely intertwined. A lot of innocent Ukrainians oppressed during those terrible years went missing in the camps in Kazakhstan. The oppressions had a negative impact on the psyche of those who survived the Great Terror. Many experience post-traumatic stress, but people will not forget about these tragic pages of history and continue to commemorate the Great Purge in order not to let it happen in the future.